Hello again and welcome to The Luxury of Choice, a B2B sales and business podcast brought to you by the training team of George James Limited. My name is Steve Vaughan, I'm a senior sales trainer at George James, and I'm also the host and producer of this podcast. Today's topic is all about one-to-one meetings, having one-to-one meetings. So what we're going to do today is explore all around what a one-to-one meeting is, what it isn't for that matter, and who's it for. And I've got two really good experts within the team of here at George James to talk on that particular topic. You are, guys, are looking at me as if to say, who us? No, but you definitely are. So I've got Layton and Pascal Floch here. So I should say that both Prue and Pascal do an awful lot of coaching. So having one-to-ones is something that's very close to their heart. So I'm sure we're going to have a very interesting and lively conversation. So Prue, Pascal, how are you both? Prue, how are you?
I'm good, actually. Thank you. I want to be very British here because we have one of our French colleagues with us, and to say the sun is shining and it's not raining. So what they say about the UK is not true.
For about half an hour every year. Yeah. Pascal, I think you've been away for a few days. Are you back at your home now or are you still in your travels?
Yeah. I've been away a couple of days just to have some break, and I enjoyed also the Brittany weather, so very close to what Prue described. So, but today sun is shining, so that's great. Yeah,
just the other side of the English Channel, La Manche, in French. Okay, let's get on with the topic. So we're going to talk today about one-to-one meetings, having a one-to-one meeting. We're going to look at it from both the perspective of a manager, but also of the team member as well. But I think we should really, first of all, start off with defining what do we mean by a one-to-one meeting. It might be obvious, it might not, but let's really get into that to start with. So Prue, I'm going to start with you. So I know you've done lots and lots of one-to-one meetings in your time. What is a one-to-one meeting?
Yeah, I have actually done lots of one-to-one meetings, and I'm sure that some have been better than others. So to state the obvious, they're a meeting between two people in a business setting. Okay. I think typically if we think about our listeners here, it's that classic meeting between the salesperson or someone in the commercial role and their manager. But I think also to consider that I used to have one-to-one meetings as a sales leader with my manager as well, not as often as I would have liked, but clearly there are other parts of the business. But I think really for our listeners, we should focus on those one-to-one meetings between the commercial person and the sales leader. Okay. So there's something that takes place ideally in person, but I understand with travel, at least on a Teams or Zoom format where you can see people. And there are a regular meeting that takes place where there's discussions between both sides about how things are going. Fundamentally, That's what they're about.
Okay, great. So what's the purpose of the one-to-one then, Pascal? Why do we bother? Because I know time's always a challenge in business, particularly if you're managing a large team. What's the purpose of having the one-to-one? Why do we bother? Why do we need to have it?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Steve, because quite often, and I fall into this trap as well as a manager, quite often we think about, okay, there is a key aspect to go on and to tap onto, like emergency, like the big deal that I know my team member is working on. So I could be tempted as a manager to have this conversation during a one-to-one session. And the same could take place from the other side. The sales manager, the sales, let's say, specialist could also be interested to have this conversation with his manager or her manager. However, the purpose of the one-to-one meeting, to me, is not this one. It's more about taking some time, quality time, the two of us, to discuss about mid-term, long-term strategic aspects. So it could be about the self-development. It could be about the strategy approach on the business, but not the daily things. It should be treated separately.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Who would set the agenda then for the one-to-one meeting typically, or who should, in your experience? Prue, what do you think on that? I see you smiling. I can read your mind from here.
I know. That's really worrying, Steve. So I think it should be a shared agenda, in all honesty. I think if you're a manager listening to this and you have a relatively new salesperson, You have to give them some guidance about the sort of things that will be discussed and shared at these meetings. They won't know, but they will actually change with time depending on what that person does, where the business is. So initially, probably you need to give some guidance. But as the relationship develops between the manager and the person in their team, I think you have a shared agenda that works for both sides.
Right.
It is a thing that should change. I think also there has to be as much input from the salesperson or the commercial person to be able to discuss things that are important for them in terms of their motivation, in terms of their enjoyment of the job, and that sort of thing. So I don't think we should be too rigid.
Right.
But I also think they have to be, as you said earlier, Steve, time is the one thing that many of our listeners don't have enough of. So we have to make them incredibly worthwhile as well.
So it's not just how you're feeling, how are things, tell me everything that's going on. That's part of it, but there is a little bit more formality to it than that, perhaps, in what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Really. Yeah,
it's business time in a business setting.
Right.
And actually, we're both there to make the business successful, because if the business is successful, guess what? We enjoy our jobs more. That's how to enjoy your job is to be working somewhere where it's successful. So we do have to be aware of the fact that this meeting is around that aspect, that we have a working business relationship, and it's an opportunity to discuss things exactly as Pascal said. That's not the day-to-day discussions that you have. It's planned, and it's about a more of a more strategic or more helicopter view than the minutiae of the business. So I guess, in case we don't say it, the one thing that a one-to-one meeting is not is a forecasting meeting.
You've just taken my next question away. So it's absolutely not a forecast review call. I think we'd all agree with that. But why isn't it a forecast review, Pascal? Why isn't it that we sit and look at the numbers in a one-to-one?
Let's say that there is a time for everything. And as Bruce said earlier, everyone should come prepared to this meeting. So you should come with an agreed agenda. So if there is an agreed agenda, it should not be able to forecast, because I would suspect and I would hope that there is a forecast call or at least an opportunities review call, whatever.
As a separate process.
You name it. But it should be different.
Yeah.
And the reason for it is that this one-to-one session is for sharing, is for support, is for growth. Is not for the forecast.
No.
Yeah.
That's an important process, but it's a different process, I think, isn't it, really? Yeah. It's not something that we do. I always used to think of it as it's like quality airtime with my boss or my team member when I was the boss, really, and something that really I used to look forward to both ways, because you can take a step out of the day-to-day. I don't mean it's not completely, as we said, abstracted as a business conversation, but we can take a step out of the day-to-day and just take a little bit look more, as you say, longer term. And also, what's going on in the world of that particular person you're having the one-to-one with, really? What are they finding difficult right now, or what are they needing a bit of help with, really, is a key part of the process. How often should we have a one-to-one, do you think, Pascal?
Very good question again. It varies, I would say. First, it depends if you have a number of people you have in your team as a manager. However, you should have a sort of a tempo, and it should be scheduled on a regular basis so that everyone from both sides considers it as a sacred time. So you should not escape from this, and you should come prepared, and you should not cancel it. Maybe we can come back on this later on, because there are always some issues at some point. But back to your points, probably once a week, once every 2 weeks should be fine. And again, it depends how experienced the other is, the call. A beginner, it would be great as a manager that you support him or her more than others, in the sense that regular check is key. So once a week is fine. For very experienced people, applying the situational leadership approach, first of all, you ask him or her when they want to have this one-to-one, how frequently, and then you can define it. But again, it should be anyway scheduled on a regular basis, not, let's try when we have time. That doesn't work.
No, because there never is time, is there?
Yeah.
There's always something that coming in the way. That's the important point, I think, is that just because we've got somebody that's a top performer or experienced performer knows what they're doing, it doesn't mean we don't still have a one-to-one with them. They might not be quite as regular as a new member of the team, but we still have to find some airtime for them and give them that quality time with you as well, really. So I guess on what we're saying, Prue, it's something that we shouldn't reschedule or rearrange unless it's absolutely mission critical.
No, I think it's something that goes in your calendar. It's one of those things, it's easy to plan ahead of time. We are the masters of our own destiny, to be honest, with our calendars. We should schedule it at an appropriate time and with a frequency that works for both sides. I agree, Pascal. I think if somebody's new into the business or new into the role, then we'll have more frequent touch points with them because it's valuable. And then we move it out. And for somebody who is contributing at a high level in terms of have something that's agreed, but don't ignore them. Because I think we said earlier on that it's actually for both sides. So while somebody new may have a lot of questions, need support and guidance, somebody who's very experienced as a manager can bring you some valuable insight that you can quickly share amongst the team. One of the things with remotely based teams that we have is this ability to share best practice quickly. And as a manager, having one-to-ones with the range of skills and experience of a typical team, if one of my better salespeople gave me a little bit of a nugget of information, I was like, results. That's really working. So rather than waiting for the quarterly business review or however often you do it, I could quickly go, I think we really should roll this out across the team. I used to have them monthly, actually. I think monthly was what I settled down to have monthly one-to-ones. And if my sales team changed them on me, I always knew it was an issue for me. So a few times when I would get the call to say, hey, can we move that? Because it's usually a customer. I've got a customer and it's the only time they'll see me, which, to be honest, I don't believe.
So why do you say that then? When you say it's on you as a manager, is it because they don't see the value of the one-to-one?
Exactly.
Okay.
My first question when that happened to me was, why don't they want to come to the meeting? Am I not delivering value in this meeting? Why isn't it working? And so it was always a bit of a red flag to me when that happened, particularly when it happened more than once. You're just going, there's something not good here. But yeah, everyone should have that opportunity. It's like we have these annual appraisal things that we all have to do. I'm just thinking at the time that we're recording this, a lot of people will be coming up to doing annual appraisals in March.
Yeah.
And that's the only time you really sit down and have a good, thorough overview of how things are going. Honestly, it should be like mini versions of those. So that when you come to the annual appraisal, it's a consolidation of this whole thing that you've been talking through the year. No surprises, nothing that you go, I had no idea.
That's a point I really wanted to explore, the surprises. Okay. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that point up. So yeah, I agree. At an annual appraisal, you shouldn't have any surprises. There should be nothing that comes from left field from both sides. But how would you handle, Pascal? I don't know if you've ever had to deal with this, but how would you handle a one-to-one where perhaps a team member might bring something or possibly something that's personal or something that's not going well in their own life or something? How is that something you would deal with in that one-to-one? Not deal with, sorry, you would address in that one-to-one, or is it something you would perhaps put to another time or another day?
Yeah, definitely. That should be one of the points that as a manager, I should take care of. So providing support to my team member. And sometimes it could be something personal, it could be something professional, but which would impact the performance or the well-being of the person. And then what can I do as a manager? So first of all, it would be a bit asking about the facts, the situation, just to remove the emotional part as far as possible. But then asking, okay, what do you see as options? How could things be improved? What could you do from your side? And after those questions, if your team member is still struggling, then proposing your support. How can I help you? Because as a manager, that's also part of your role. Not doing things instead of the other, but showing him or her that you are close to him, her, and ready to provide support.
Because that's happened in one-to-ones. I've had team members who brought very personal things to them that were going on in their life, family issues, whatever. And and it's a thing that can happen from time to time, for sure. Yeah.
And probably in addition to this, as a manager, especially if you become aware of this type of situation and you have the trust from your employee to be informed about his or her personal situation, you should anticipate and proactively reorganize things or activities with him or her around this issue. Because if someone has a lot of time to spend for his or her family during a period, you have to stay realistic here. So you have to reorganize maybe the workload or the priorities to keep him or her performing, but not to be overloaded. And that's your role as a manager.
Yeah, great points. So what can go wrong in a one-to-one pro? I'm not asking you to think of personal experiences, unless you want to share some, but what kind of things can go wrong? What would make a bad one-to-one meeting?
I think most bad one-to-one meetings are where the manager doesn't manage the situation well. It tends to always come from the manager's side. So if you use them inappropriately for piling up all of the criticisms, I'm glad we're having this meeting. I've got a number of issues here that I wanted to address with you. I've had a look at your CRM. It's not up to date. I've also noticed that this hasn't. You can't use it as an opportunity as a manager when you've got the person's attention to actually address issues that you've not addressed at the time. So I think that can go wrong. Probably it can be very tempting to use that time, particularly if you're pressured and you have some frustration with the person in front of you. But that really derails the value of the meeting. They do need to be addressed, but don't hijack the meeting for things it's not meant for. If you end up talking about one really big deal, it's so tempting, isn't it?
It is.
You're coming to quarter end or you're coming to year end, and the person in front of you is holding the success or otherwise of your year in front of you. It's so hard not to use that meeting time to go, I know we're not supposed to, but have we heard anything about?
While we're here, yeah, it is difficult, isn't it? Really, yeah.
I think if I was trying to think about it, if you have somebody who's not very engaged from their side in the meeting, and you feel that you're really forcing the issue, but then that's telling you a lot about them. So I'm saying that isn't where it's gone wrong. If I've had people who are not engaging with the process, and of course I have, and I've tried to uncover why they don't find them valuable or don't think they should be there or think there's something better they could be getting on with and what's the point, all of which have been said to me, is that it's frustrating for that time, but it's telling me something about this person and their engagement with the business and with the team and with the organisation. So I think what mostly goes wrong with one-to-one meetings is people don't have them. I think yes. That's the biggest thing that goes wrong.
Yeah.
I do the sales management and leadership training course, and when I talk to managers on that, they often ask me about one-to-one meetings, and when I ask them why, it's because they don't have them. Well, I'm so busy. Of course we speak all the time, and it's but let's not talk. Of course you speak all the time, but you need to carve this time out where you are really having this strategic discussion with your salesperson about how the business is going, where they've got challenges, what support they've looked at. And you were doing it just now, and I was going to comment, Pascal, in your comments, it's your best opportunity to do coaching. Most of us know that we would love to be able to coach our salespeople, but we're really short of time to do it. So when we do go on co-visits with them, it's often business critical meetings. We can't really coach well on business critical meetings. We need to make sure we win the business. But those one-to-one meetings, you won't get a better opportunity to actually deliver some coaching.
It's
it's
very pertinent at this stage just to recap what we mean by coaching. I know we've talked about it at other podcasts. Both of you are both very experienced and competent coaches, but it might be worth Pascal just restating what we mean by giving somebody coaching, because it isn't telling them what to do.
Thanks for this. I'm sure that Fru would also like to answer this. And the thing is that about coaching here is from a sales manager towards his or her team member. First of all, is active listening. Giving the other the opportunity to share and to provide feedback and to bring topics which are key for them. So that's the first thing. The second aspect is to keep exploring after you receive the first information, making sure that you understood correctly, formulating differently what the other said. And normally in sales, we are equipped to do this.
Normally.
And the other aspect is, of course, after this is providing or proposing to provide support after we ask a number of questions so that the other one should find himself or herself the solutions. And if that doesn't bring, or if that doesn't come so easily, this is where you can act as a mentor, someone very experienced, sharing your experience, sharing some ideas to inspire the other. But the key here as a manager coach attitude would be to let the other define and bring the solutions, not you telling the other what he has or she should better do. This is not coaching. This is consulting, and both are fine, but they have to be applied in different situations.
Yeah. Would you identify before the one-to-one that this is going to be a coaching session? Would you flag it with the team member beforehand? Leave with you on that one. Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think that if you have regular one-to-ones with the members of your team, they start to value them. If you've never done them before and you start implementing them, they'll think you're being weird, and that's okay. Lots of my people in my team have thought I'm weird.
Perish the thought.
If you get over that, this is a bit odd. Are we not doing the forecast? No. Am I in trouble? No. I just want to really find some quality time for us to sit and discuss how things are going and how we're going to make sure they keep going well. So this is what I thought we could talk about. But you can identify when someone has a challenge or has tried a few things that haven't worked. You can identify those coaching opportunities during one-to-ones because that's what the time is for. Whereas if you're on a forecast call, and you can often spot things in forecast calls where people really could do with some coaching, in order to achieve the business objective of getting the forecast done, you can't coach because it's like, it's not the right time. Whereas one-to-ones are perfect. You can sometimes do it with these sort of frequent calls you get, but most of the time, used to get a call going, Pro, I've got this meeting in 10 minutes. And just before I go in, I just want you to say, I just need a bit of kind of guidance here. I can't go, thank you very much for calling, Steve. So I think this is a great coaching opportunity. So what have you thought about so far? It's just like you get so much of that hasty interaction that these one-to-one meetings are perfect if it occurs. And you can go, hey, this looks like a really good opportunity. Spend a bit of time using a coaching approach to this. How do you feel about that? And you acknowledge to people that I always say, no stealth coaching. I don't know what you're doing.
No sneaky coaching there.
No sneaky coaching. But you've carved this time out, and we haven't really spoken about how long they should be. But
okay, well, let's do that. How long would they be, do you think?
More than 30 minutes, less than an hour.
You agree, Pascal? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Between 30 to 40, that's fair enough. And it's also a question of managing your time and the time of the other.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Would you do them over lunch, something like that, or would they be something separate from that? Thinking what I've done in the past, actually.
Depends whether they're noisy. Depends whether they're noisy eaters, Steve.
It reminds me some nice sushis and sushis and stuff. But the point is that sometimes you could invite some of your team members to go outside, change the atmosphere and relax the atmosphere.
Yeah.
You should be aware anyway that some people may consider this as a non-respectful approach because it's still professional. Some would consider more appropriate to have a meeting in a meeting room, sitting down together and talk.
That's a great point.
So you have to be very careful as a sales manager. I would leave to anyone to think about it and decide.
Yeah.
But let's say you should keep some formal, environment.
Yeah.
to make it very clear. No.
And of course, cultural variations apply here as well. And I should have known before asking a gentleman from France about having a meeting over lunch, because lunch is obviously very important, rightly in France. So
yeah, and as a Frenchman, I would even say that you should be careful. So
but I also think don't tag them onto the end of a visit day. Don't think let's spend a day out and we'll just tag on a one-to-one meeting. You've planned them ahead of time. The nice thing about good one-to-one meetings is if there really is a great coaching opportunity, you can actually dedicate the whole of that time to that thing. You don't have to get through the whole agenda. It's not like the forecast, which you have to get finished. Whatever.
We're not leaving until we've gone through the whole agenda. No.
It's like it's a really good time to say, actually, in terms of personal development, building somebody's confidence, giving them the kind of motivation to reinforce that they have got great ideas, and that there's all sorts of really positive strokes that you give when you coach. And most managers, when you ask them, they go, yeah, actually, my best manager was a great coach. And it's, I'd love to do more coaching, but I haven't got time. These one-to-one meetings are a fabulous opportunity for you to develop your skills as a coach, and for your salesperson to see you as more than somebody who just goes, fill your CRM in and where's your forecast, which of course we also have to talk about.
Of course.
But but I think the agenda is, the topics that you cover are very focused on the person and not the business.
Right.
So they're about their personal development, their successes, their challenges. So it's about their functioning in their role as opposed to what they're doing. That's the principal difference for me.
Great points.
It's about how am I doing my job? How much am I enjoying my job? Where am I struggling with my job? Or where do I want to tell you about something that's gone so well, I can't wait to tell you how great it was. And they've got your undivided attention to actually listen to them. All coaches are great listeners. And you can actually have that kind of personal congratulations or reinforcement that makes such a difference.
Super point.
So that's why I think they're so important.
Yeah. We were actually going to do a confession, dear listener. We were actually going to do a different topic for this podcast a couple of weeks ago. It was going to be help. Why are my team all leaving, or do they keep leaving? And we will come back to that topic, I'm sure. But we decided to change it to this topic of one-to-ones as a result of our last podcast. But to answer that point, one of the reasons why your team members might be leaving is because you don't have one-to-ones. You don't give them any airtime. They don't see you. They don't hear from you. You don't give them any of their time, really. So some super points.
Yeah. I can tell you a story about
Please.
that, and I shall remove all references to real people. So I was doing some training inside a business, and I was talking about why you should have one-to-one meetings and why they were so important, particularly with your more experienced people. And I said, imagine that if you didn't have regular contact with your most experienced person, and the first time you heard from them for ages was when you got their resignation. And you got this resignation and you went, oh no, I can't, this is the worst news ever. And one of the people on the training looked at me and said, has someone told you something? And I went, no, sorry. And the person said to me, that's exactly what happened to me yesterday.
Oh no.
And I was and I didn't know. And I said, but this is one of the reasons why we need to, as managers, have that opportunity, that regular opportunity to really stay close to the important people in our team.
Absolutely.
Because without them, we're nothing.
No, yeah, absolutely. Great discussion, Pascal and Prue. Just a final thought from both of you then. So if I'm a sales manager listening to this podcast and I haven't been doing any one-to-ones, apart from actually scheduling some one-to-ones, can I get a recommendation from both of you? Starting with you, Pascal, what would you recommend? How would what thoughts would you give to a sales manager who wants to start doing one-to-ones, apart from to actually get some scheduled?
Yeah. So, first of all, he could contact us to get some
great idea.
and direct trainings or mentoring or coaching how to become a manager coach.
Absolutely. Super idea.
And additional idea would be to start doing it, starting experiencing it, being clear with the one or with the team member I start with that, okay, let's experience that together. and let's co-build this together and as a pilot. And when it works, you diffuse it to the entire team. But you should be clear with the rest of the team members that they don't feel excluded. So that's very important. Okay?
Good point.
So I would do this way. And as Prue did, let's say, told it so well, that this is a forum for growth, for self-development, for skills development, but both for the employee and the manager. Something we didn't talk about is the feedback we could receive about our way to manage from the team members. Maybe we can take it on the side for the moment, but that's also important. Getting information about the way you manage people.
Yeah, so absolutely. It's a two-way process. Yeah. Yeah, great point. And we all chuckled when you said about contact one of us, but we should point out as well as being trainers, we all do one-to-one coaching ourselves with customers. So if this is something that's of interest to you, then of course get in contact with us. Prue, one thought from you, one final recommendation for somebody who isn't doing one-to-ones yet but wants to start.
I think it will be weird, but what we like, when you have good teams, it's about acting with transparency as a manager. When we talk about great management, it's about operating in that way. So if I'd never had a one-to-one meeting and I've been thinking about it and hopefully listening to this podcast goes, I'm going to do this, just be honest. Take somebody in your team, don't take the hardest nut to crack. Don't do that. That's mad. Just take somebody that's been very open to receive feedback and discussion and say, I was listening to this podcast the other day and I know I've got to get on with it, so I'm going to start scheduling one-to-ones. I'd be delighted if I could start with you. How do you feel about that? Tell them why you're doing it. We have honest relationships with our people in our team. And I think just say, I've been meaning to do this for a long time. I haven't got round to it. I'd like us, as Pascal very nicely put, I'd like us to learn together here.
Love it.
So just be honest while you're doing it. Don't dress it up, because when you go into any training program, you go away and you're going to go back and start acting differently. And that's great. I remember my first management training and I went back to my sales team and went, oh, you're getting all managerial. I went, good. Apparently I'm supposed to be. But if you are going to change something, explain why you're doing it. Don't let people try and gossip about why it's happening.
Great points. Prue, Pascal, thank you ever so much for sharing your thoughts on one-to-ones. It's something that we've all done in our careers. And if you listen to this, dear listener, and you're inspired to go and host some one-to-ones with your team or go and ask your boss for some one-to-ones, then we've achieved our objectives today. I'd just like to say a few words about what's going to be coming up from us next week. So on the 8th of March, which is a Saturday, it's International Women's Day. And around that particular topic, we're going to be putting together some particular content around that. So on the Friday, which is, I guess, the 7th, I got to get the date right, 7th of March, we'll be having a LinkedIn Live. So I'll be hosting a LinkedIn Live, but I won't be doing most of the talking. Obviously, I'm not a woman. My colleague, Jane Green, and also some customers are going to be joining us just to explore the whole topic around women in business and look at the particular focus on how that world has changed and how it could still change more moving forward. And then we're also going to be putting together a special one-off podcast where myself, again, Jane Green, and two female business leaders from within our industry are going to begin talking around this particular topic of women in business, the challenges women face, how we can make things work better for women in business generally, and how things can improve looking forward into the next 10 or 15 years. So look out for those particular podcasts and that LinkedIn Live coming up. Otherwise, apart from that, we'll be back to our normal schedule every couple of weeks of releasing a sales-related podcast. Thanks for listening, dear listener. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. It does help you get the latest episode into your inbox on time. And also, if you do what we do, we'd love you to leave a review for us on Spotify or Apple. It does help us in lots of weird and mysterious ways. We'll be back again soon. In the meantime, happy selling and enjoy those one-to-ones. Take care. Bye, Prue. Bye, Pascal.
Bye.
Bye-bye.